Let's talk about the anatomy of a great carry gun today. What's up and welcome to the channel. My name is Hegshot. Thanks so much for joining me today as we're going to look at all of these different pieces that make up an excellent carry gun. If this is your first time stopping by, please make sure you subscribe, hit your notifications so you never miss a video from me. And also, if you want to check out some of the other content I have out here on the World Wide Web and YouTube, including my own music, gaming, a horror review channel, motorcycle content. I actually almost have 20,000 subscribers on the motorcycle channel. I want to incorporate some truck stuff on that channel. I have a lot of content out there, man. I'd love for y'all to join these other communities, man, because they're just awesome, just like this one. So I'll leave those links down below. Let's go ahead and break this thing down and look at the anatomy of a great carry gun. First thing we're going to talk about is capacity. And this is a game-changing gun you're looking at right in front of you. This is the original P365. This set the bar from 6, 7, and even 8 round carry guns to 10 minimum. But what this gun didn't do is sacrifice some of the other anatomical pieces that you need for a great carry gun. Now, this is so subjective that some people will say Glock 19, some people will say full-size M&P, some people will say, 1911, some people will say this. You got to remember, this is just my opinion, okay? So capacity is super important right now. If you have anything less than a 10-round magazine, standard base plate magazine, you're kind of behind the curve, right? And then most of the time your additional magazine is going to be even more capacity, but of course it's going to add a little bit of length there. But capacity is one of the pieces you have to have, and I think 10 rounds is a minimum in a great carry gun in 2022. But that's just one of the pieces. Let's look at something else that makes up a great carry gun, but that's going to be size and weight. So you have something like the Shield Plus. You're under 20 ounces unloaded, but you also have a gun that is super thin profile. So this obviously lends itself being great to an everyday carry gun, because you can get guns with really good capacity, but then if they're too bulky or too wide or too heavy, most people might look at that gun and say, dude, I'm not carrying that. It's more of a hassle to carry that than for what it's worth, or it might just stay in a vehicle or whatever. It might not be on their person if and when they actually needed that for self-defense. So I'm always looking at that, man. Is this gun something that personally I'm going to carry every single day? And is this something that appeals to a lot of different people as far as a good carry gun? And size and weight are crucial for a great carry gun. And if it's too heavy and too big, it can't be a great carry gun, in my opinion. Let's look at something else here. We've talked about some bigger guns, right? But we also have a really small gun here. So you may be thinking, well, a small gun, I mean, the smaller it is, the better it has to be, right? Well, we have an LCP2 right here on the table, and this is about as small as they come, besides guns like Lifeguards and others like that I have really no interest in doing, because they're single shot or two shot or whatever, just not a real option for me as far as concealed carry. The LCP2 is on the bigger end of things. Hell, we could even put in something like the Glock 42, which is kind of small. But again, there's one big issue with this gun, and anatomically, it just ain't jiving, and that's the sights, right? So the sights are actually milled into the slide on this gun. For shootability purposes, there's no way I could say this is a great carry gun. Now, it's a good pocket gun, but even with the LCP Max, that kind of makes this gun null and void in my opinion. So it's got to have a good set of sights on it, and there really is no better example than the P365. It utilizes the X-ray style sights with blacked out rear, that nice green dot up front, tritium insert, night sights, makes this a super shootable option. Even with the Shield Plus, this is a standard Shield Plus. So you have 3 white dots, but they're steel sights. The sight picture is incredible. It's easy to read, and this leads to a very shootable carry gun. That's my next point. It has to be shootable. It has to have features that lend itself to not only being a good inside the waistband, but also when you need to pull it out. When you're at the range, you got to be able to put shots on target. So the smaller you go, the less shootable it actually becomes. You still have a pretty potent round, even in a 380, but then you have less weight and you have less size to soak up that recoil. So even like the Glock 42, it's got a good size to it, but it's only 6 rounds. So this, in today's market, to me, is not a great carry gun. Now, there's going to be people, and I understand this point fully, that say, well, Glock 42, LCP Max, guns like that are really great as backup guns or deep concealment guns, and I totally agree. What I'm trying to hammer home here is an everyday carry, your primary carry gun. So just keep that in mind before you drop a comment about the 42, the LCP Max, and other guns. Although I do like those guns, I primarily see those as a backup role. The LCP Max, not so much like the LCP2, because you do have good capacity, you do have a good set of sights, and hell, I have one right here I can show you. Good set of sights, it's got a decent trigger, great capacity, 10+1. Would I take a little bit more weight though over something like this, over something that's super like deep concealment? Personally, I would, but not that much more weight. So that's where we kind of, you know, draw the line there. I'm looking at your primary carry gun and what makes up a good primary carry gun. So I'm gonna bring in one example here. This is the Taurus GX4, and although it hits on a lot of the points I just mentioned, the sights on this gun are more than subpar compared to some of these others. So I wouldn't consider that a great carry gun, although, man, it's really close. I just would not consider that a great carry gun. Let's bring in another gun that will illustrate my next point perfectly. The Smith & Wesson CSX. It also retains some of those really great features that I look for in a good carry gun, except one. That being consistency and the trigger. So how this gun shoots, man, I hate the trigger on the CSX, and although it does have some of those great features, I would not consider it a great carry gun. Where the Shield Plus really shines on this table, put a little halo around the Shield Plus almost, is in the trigger. It has the best striker fired trigger, stock trigger, of any carry gun I've ever shot, and in my hands, it literally shoots like a bigger gun. And I know people say that a lot, but this is the definition of shooting like a bigger gun. The trigger on this thing is absolutely incredible. Let me show you. Drop the mag. Let's make sure we're clear. So instead of using their old hinge design, they've used more of a flat face trigger with a little dingish right there in the middle. You hit the wall, breaks. Reset, boom. There's no guesswork here. It's very consistent, makes this gun super shootable. And I would almost put this gun up against a lot of full-size guns. I shoot this gun pretty incredibly, man, and a lot of it has to do with that trigger. The Smith & Wesson 10mm, same kind of deal. I shoot that gun really good, and that trigger, the sights, the size of the gun lend itself to being a great shooting concealed carry gun, man. It shoots way better than what it really should. We look at the P365. Here's another great example. Not as good as the Shield Plus, but you hit the wall, it breaks. Reset, right there. Very consistent. So it's got to have a consistent, it's got to have a smooth trigger pull, no guesswork there. And striker fire guns, I think, just lend themselves to being better carry guns in today's market and have been for a really long time, as opposed to like the CSX or the P938, where you have a decent trigger as far as the pull, kind of gritty. You have a safety that you have to deal with the safety to carry this gun cocked and locked. I just don't want to have to think about that kind of stuff in a stressful situation. So another thing that will lend itself to being a great carry gun in 2022 is something that not a lot of people were doing just a few short years ago, and that's having the ability to run an optic. Now, this is something I'm starting to warm up to. It has a lot of great advantages like low light situations, quicker target acquisition once you get used to it. So it can be a useful tool. And I think pretty much all of the great carry guns out there today are giving you the ability to run an optic on their guns. And another thing I would say is that, you know, night sights and having that is something you definitely want on a carry gun, because you have no idea. It could be nighttime, it could be a dark place, wherever you may be trying to prepare for those situations. You definitely want at least night sights and or the ability to put an optic on there, and even better if your iron sights co-witness with said optic. Trust is incorporated into your carry gun. You have to trust that it's going to work. You have to trust that you can put shots on target, and it's got to be reliable. I mean, there's just no other way around this. If the Shield Plus fails the next time I take it to the range, will I put it up on this pedestal? No. And I mean like catastrophic failure. I'm a believer that the reason that you train with your guns is to overcome issues that are inevitably going to come up. So I don't look at any of these guns, including Glock, and say, oh, they're just not going to ever have any issues, and that's the only way I'm ever going to carry them. No. You literally train. There's literally like tap, rack, all that kind of stuff to train for issues that will arise. If this thing has a catastrophic failure, if something like, for example, the Sky CPX2, where the magazine release, the spring literally came out of this and the gun was not functional, if something like that happens, yeah, I'm going to have an issue with it. You know, any catastrophic type of thing, especially a brand new gun like that, yeah, I would definitely have an issue with that. But generally speaking, these are man-made objects, so at some point they will or may fail. But generally speaking, these guns are uber reliable. Glock, Smith & Wesson, SIG, Ruger, generally speaking, they're super reliable. So that trust has to be built into the anatomy of a great carry gun. So with all of these things that we've talked about, from the balance of the gun, it needs to be big enough to where, and of course this is just my opinion, but it needs to be big enough to where you can actually use the gun and feel confident in shooting the gun. But it can't be too big, because I think that most people would just leave something like that at home. So it has to strike a good balance there, at least for me personally. It's got to have a great trigger. It's got to be something that I can shoot really well. But most importantly, out of all this stuff, and I think this kind of leads up to this, is you got to be willing to carry it. So whoever you are and whatever is important to you, it just has to be something that you're going to carry. It can't be something that you're just going to leave at home and say, yeah, I have my concealed carry permit. Hey, do you have your gun on you? No. Forget the permit, what's it there for? So essentially, the whole idea is for you to get something that you're comfortable with carrying every single day. That's the entire point of this whole video. And some people are going to cherish, maximum capacity, mag capacity over size. Some people will look at a Hellcat Pro and be like, this is the perfect carry gun, but I would never carry a Shield Plus because it only has 10 rounds. Some people may look at this and be like, why am I going to carry this? I can carry a Glock 19. So it's so wildly different. What works for me may not work for you, or it may work for you. Who knows? So I cherish that perfect balance between a full-size gun and a slimline, shootable, micro 9, if you will, Shield Plus, Hellcat Pro, P365, the Spectre Comp. Guns like that just really strike the perfect balance, and they have all of the anatomical features I'm looking for and things that I think make up a fantastic carry gun. I would love to know what makes up a great carry gun in your opinion. Leave those things down below. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support what I do, you can do that on Patreon. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.